going zoom up. Okay, so some of you are looking at this and you're with very mixed emotions. You're like, ah, yeah, decimals, but I'm not giving you a calculator. So, you know. And you're like, oh, bedmaster decimals, no. And then you see word problems. There was an extra. There was an extra. Still my fault. And then you see this, and some of you shudder, but that's okay. So it's just they're fluffy little introductory word problems. Not a lot going on. We'll take a look at them. You'll see they're nice and simple. It won't be too bad. So touch your name on here. This is Dawidoff. This is block something. You guys are A. Bad C. You guys are A. Not C. You're A. C's my other block. Ooh, and actually, maybe you guys want to know this. On your guys' first quiz, I don't know if we want to make it a competition between my blocks. Maybe we should make it a competition between my blocks. They did better than you guys on the first quiz, but you guys beat them on the second quiz. So as a class, congratulations, you beat them. Okay, so here we go. Decimals, bedmaster decimals, and word problems. Boom diggity. We've done this a little bit already. We're going to look at it again here in more detail. I need to get my notes. Where's my master copy? Here's my master copy. Oh, where is it? Okay, so recall converting a fraction to a decimal. We kind of did this already. When you're converting a fraction to a decimal, there's two options you have. Either I've given you nice values and we're going to use the fractions we memorized, or if you have forgotten and you just like maximum chaos math, you divide the top number by the bottom number. You actually do the division. But there's actually a third option here too, which is going to relate to some of the other stuff we're going to look at today. One of your other options is if you can, another option, a third choice, is to change the fraction. So when I say change the fraction, I mean write an equivalent fraction. The fraction is still equal, but now it looks different. Change the fraction to be over a power of 10. Gentleman in the middle here. Abdal and Abdul. And when I say powers of 10, what I mean are like put it over 10, put it over 100, put it over 1,000 if you can. If you don't have a calculator and you don't want to do it longhand, there's all sorts of tips and tricks. They're not really tricks, they're techniques, I guess, to getting around this step of converting fractions to decimal. And I'll model all three of these for you here with this very, very first question. So, if you're doing this first one, I said 3/4. 3/4 is nice and easy. All y'all should know that 3/4 is 0.25. By 0.25, I mean 0.75. 1/4 is 0.25, 3/4 is 0.75, and that's just, that model right there is using the fractions that we've memorized. There are some that you're going to be familiar with already. You should be familiar with the quarters. I'll write down the ones that we reviewed. You should know the quarters. You should know the fifths. You should know your ninths because they're super easy. The ninths actually will give you the thirds. The tenths are nice and easy. And the beauty of the tenths is that the tenths actually go back and give you the fifths. The quarters will go and give you the halves. Which, if you're looking at this, that only leaves us with the sixths, sevenths, and eighths. The sixths you can kind of get from the thirds if you like to go crazy. The eighths you can get from the quarters if you like to go crazy, because an eighth is just half of a quarter. A sixth is just a half of a third. The sevenths are really the only ones that are truly terrible. And to do the sevenths without a calculator, the only thing you're doing there is long division. Because 7 is a terrible number in this realm. So, that is using the fractions we've memorized. Let's look at it 2 other ways. We can divide the top number by the bottom number. I'll review how we do long division with fractions. If I want to divide this, it's always top divided by bottom. So the thing you're dividing by goes out front, and the thing that you're dividing goes on the inside. And does 4 go into 3? No, because it's a fraction already. So when you have something that can't go any further, instead of writing the remainder like you guys would have done in elementary school, we throw a decimal, we add a 0, because 3.0 is the same as 3. And now we're going to put that decimal right above in the answer, or in the quotient. And we say, now can 4 go into 30? Gentlemen, stop touching each other. Does 4 go into 30? It does. Jacob, what is it? How many times does it go in? You said it does. Scarlett? Yeah, it goes in 7 times, because 7 times 4 is 28. And we're going to do the subtraction. That's a 2. 4 doesn't go into 2. We're going to add a 0. We're going to drop it down. Does 4 go into 20? Yes, it does. 4 goes into 25 times 5. And you have multiplication tables for all this. 5 times 4 is 20. 20 minus 20 is 0. Oh, look. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. Again. It's still 0.75. This is good. When you're doing things, when you're doing math questions a bunch of different ways and get the same answer every time, this is good. It means the math is working. Okay, last way we do it, the other example I gave you, I said change the fraction to be over a power of 10. So, I'm going to do that up here. Can I take 3 over 4? Can I multiply 4 by a number and get 10? A whole number? No. Can I multiply 4 by a whole number and get 100? Yes. Yes, I can. 4 times what is 100? So this is going to become 75 over 100. And dividing, the reason we want it over powers of 10 is because I think we did this at the beginning already. If this is 75 over 100, that's just the same thing as having a decimal where this number here, this digit, the 5, is in the hundredths spot. That is in the tens spot. Oh, look. It's the same again. So you've got a whole bunch of different techniques for doing this, assuming I don't give you a calculator. I don't care which technique. I'm never going to ask you to model all the techniques. I'm just going to ask you to do some of these conversions when it's useful. And you pick away and you do it. It's like I'm not going to, if I hire you to build my house, I'm not going to stand over your shoulder all the day and be like, I want you to that hammer. Now I want you to pick up that screwdriver. I don't care. Build what you need to build. Do the math that you need to do. Pick a technique that works for you and demonstrate it. Carson, what I got? So, if I'm doing 35 over 2, someone give me a way to do this problem. Josh, you look like a man of many thoughts. You want me to long divide 35 by 2. Okay, Josh wants long division. Does anyone want something else before you make me long divide? Is there a quick and easier way to do this question? Scarlett and Hassan Joe are both nodding furiously. Hassan Joe, you haven't spoken yet today. We could make it mixed. You betcha. Which is kind of like, it's the beginnings of division. How many times does 2 go into 35? It goes in 17 times. 17 times 2 is 34. It gives me a half. And now that's really easy to do, because a half we should know. A half is what is a decimal? So then 35 over 2 is going to become 17.5, and we're done. We could have long divided our way to this, but by converting it to a mixed number, we kind of actually did the long division in our head is what we really did here. 12 over 5, we could do that too. 12 over 5 is actually another kind of easy technique for this though. Because 12 over 5 is the same thing as, well, I can put this over a power of 10. Because 5 times what is 10? 2. So I can multiply top and bottom by 10. So what that's going to give me here is that's going to give me 24 over 10. Which is just 2 and 4 tenths. 2.4. The 4 is in the tenths, and the 2 is my wholes. 24 over 10 is 2.4. All sorts of techniques you can model. I don't care how you choose to do it. And honestly, sometimes having a bunch of these techniques and being able to go back and forth is going to make your life easy. Does anyone have any questions as we reviewed converting fractions to decimals? Okay, we've already done this next one too. By way of review, this is even easier. Converting a decimal number to a fraction is even easier. Because decimal, does anyone know what that prefix deci means? Deci means, Genesis, was that a hand? No, that was not a hand. Deci means something. Like if you have a decimeter, perhaps you're familiar with decimeters. This prefix deci means something. Does anyone know what it means? Sorry? No. Natavi, you look like you're about to say something. You're like stroking your beard like you know. Okay? Deci means out of 10. So a decimal is just numbers that are out of powers of 10. It's either out of tens or hundreds or thousands or 10,000s, whatever place you've got. So we don't actually need to do any of this. Let's scribble this out. I don't like those instructions. We're going to get rid of the instructions. We're going to make our lives easier. If I want to convert this thing to a fraction, here's what you do. What place is that 5 in? It's in the hundredths spot. So we're going to take this thing and we're going to put it over 100. Whatever this place value is, the furthest right place value becomes the denominator of your fraction. And then the whole thing to the right of the decimal, well, actually the whole thing, becomes whatever that number is, becomes your numerator. So this is going to become 25 over 100. And now if I want to leave this as a fraction, now all we have to do is reduce. If a number ends in a 5, it's divisible by 5. If it ends in a 0, it's divisible by 5. So we can just divide both of these by 5. I could divide them both by 25. I don't know. 25 by 5 is 5. I heard someone say 100 divided by 5 is 20, someone said. And I can divide both of these again by 5. It's going to be 1 over 4. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. Put it over a denominator of a power of 10 and reduce. So then 1.2 is similar. What place is that 2 in? The tenths. So this is going to become 12 over 10. That spot, that tenths spot, becomes the denominator, and then that whole number becomes the numerator. So 1.2 became 12 over 10. And now I can reduce. Both of these are divisible by what? They're both divisible by 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and we're done. We can keep going. We've got one more here. Someone said it already. Great. That is the thousandths spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this as a fraction over 1,000. And it's 175. That whole number there goes into the numerator. Everything that's present. And now we start dividing. What can we divide by? We can divide by 5, someone said. Divide by 5 divided by 5. If 10 divided by 5 is 2 and 100 divided by 5 is 20, then 1,000 divided by 5 is going to be 200. Is that you, Carson? No, someone whispered it back there. It's going to be 200. Someone did this already in their head? 175 divided by 5? Did someone crank that out in their head? I heard someone say it. It is, in fact, 35. That's impressive. If you're not sure, long divide, I mean, there are some tricks to this, but long division might have to be the way to go for this. But now we can divide this by 5 again. 35 divided by 5 is 7. If 20 divided by 5 is 4, then 200 divided by 5 is going to be 4D. You might have to do some of this long division, but that is what the simplification would look like. You get 7 over 40. This, at this stage, should be reviewing. We've done both of these already. The only thing we're going to add in here is this playing around with percentages. Because for whatever reason, students are like, I don't like percent. What is percent? What are percentages? How do I work with percentages? So what does percent mean? Do I have any foreign language speakers in here? A very specific foreign language? Anyone in here are like, yeah, I like learning French. Do I have any French language lovers in here? Do I have anyone in here who's taken any French classes at all over the last 8 years? Okay, cool. What is this en français? Cent is 100 in French. So percent literally means per 100. It's in the name if you speak French. If you're not in the name, you're just like, oh, whatever, it's English, it's word, whatever, who cares? But it has meaning. Percent means per 100. Who knew that learning French would pay off in math class? So, to convert a percentage to a decimal, we divide that percentage by 100 to represent that thing as a decimal number. And then you drop the percent sign and reduce if you can. Or maybe it's not necessary to reduce. Let's see, we're writing it as a decimal. So 15% is going to become 15 over 100. And I want to leave this thing as a decimal. So this 5 is in the hundredths spot, because it's 15 out of 100. So this thing is going to have 2 decimal places because we're in the hundred. It's out of 100, we're in the hundredths. So 15% is going to become 0.15. Or you can think of it this way: when we divide by powers of 10, we just move the decimal once for every 0. So this is 15 over 100. I have 2 zeros here. So this is the decimal starts here, and I'm going to move it once. I'm going to move it twice. 15% is 0.15 as a decimal. So then, what's 5% going to be? Someone said 0. What? It is going to be 0.05, but why is it 0.05? Well, because 5% is 5 out of 100. And if you think about it as when you're dividing by powers of 10, you're just moving decimals. Decimals there, goes once, twice, and something needs to fill in that void. So we put a 0 in there to represent that. Or you could say, well, this is 5 in the hundredths spot. There it is. There's a few ways to think about it, whatever makes you warm and fuzzy. And then the last one is this. 100% is, well, it's going to be 100 over 100, which is just 1. So 100% is 1 whole. You've got all of it, and that's a whole is just 1. The shortcut is down here is what we've already said. Dividing by 100 is the same as moving the decimal 2 places to the left. And it's not a shortcut, it's a technique. Present Mr. Dawidoff is ticked with previous Mr. Dawidoff. So examples are, if you can get a handle on this, it's nice and easy. 55% is just going to be 1, 2, 0.55. 7% is just going to be, well, there's my decimal, 1, 2. I fill in the hole with a 0. That's just going to be 0.7. Aha, 0.07. So then 240% is going to be what? Scarlett, you have a thought? Justice has a thought? Justice. It is in fact going to be 2.4. I start at the beginning. Percent means per 100. Move the decimal place twice. 2.4. Done. Nice and easy, right? Writing percentages as decimals. Flip the page. It continues. Decimals as percentages is easy too. It's not difficult. It's just going the other way. To convert a decimal number to a percentage, you multiply by 100. And I'm going to go straight to the shortcut, which isn't a shortcut, it's a technique. Because multiplying by 100 is the same as moving the decimal 2 places which way? No, dividing moves left. Multiplying moves to the right. And if we're putting it into a percentage, you have to add the percent sign. So let's skip this line and go straight to this line. If I have 0.34 and I want that 0.34 as a percent, I'm going to move the decimal 2 places to the right, and we're going to get 34%. 1, 2, 34%. 0.08 is going to be 1, 2, 8%. Because you don't need to put the 0 in front of the 8. Gentlemen, what are we doing? 2.1 is going to become, yes. Move the decimal twice, add a 0 into the empty spot. 2.1 is going to become 210%. This is where things get more interesting. And then we're done. Writing percents as fractions. Because percent in the name already is per 100, to write these things as fractions, and if you're told to leave them as fractions, write the value of the percent as a number over 100, and then instead of moving decimals around, like we've been doing up to this point, you write it as a fraction over 100, and then we want to leave it as a fraction, so then we have to reduce or simplify. At this stage, it becomes really, really important to read the directions so that you're actually doing what the question is asking you to do. If I want to leave it as a fraction, this is where this probably is certainly more work than leaving it as a decimal. If I want 25%, then that's going to become 25 over 100 per 100. And now I have to start reducing these things. Those are both divisible by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20. And they're both divisible by 5 again. We've done this one, I think, already. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. I mean, we could have started with a bigger value, or you can do it bits and pieces. It doesn't matter. There's no judgment, from me at least. There's some students in here who would absolutely judge you. If we're looking down at our lap, we're not on our phones, right? Right? Slide that away very casually. Just put that away if that's where we are. 5% is going to be what? 5 over 100? How do I reduce that? Top and bottom are both divisible by 5. 1 over 20. Cool. And then 35% is going to become 35 over 100. Both of those are also divisible by 5. Love that. 7 over 20 and we're done. If it's not reducible, don't reduce it. At this point, it becomes nice to know what 100 is divisible by. 100 is divisible by 2, 4, 5, 10, 20, 25, and 50. That's it. If you can't divide your numerator by any of those numbers, you're not going anywhere. If it had been 37%, it would be 37 over 100, and you'd be done. And last but not least, writing fractions as percentages. This part sucks. Write the fraction as a decimal by dividing the top number by the bottom number. Yeesh. Here we're long dividing. And then you move the decimal 2 places to the right and add your percent sign. I'll do one of these as an example. Actually, I'll do 2 of them as an example. I'll zoom in so it's easier to see. If I'm doing 5/6, sixths aren't one of the ones that I told you to know. So there is a, so now we do. We're going to long divide this thing. 5 goes on the inside, 6 goes on the outside. 6 does not go into a 5, so we're going to put a decimal, add a 0. 6 goes into 50 how many times? It goes in 8 times because 6 times 8 is 48. Good. So then, subtract, so we get a 2, add a 0, drop it down. 6 goes into 20, it's not 4 times, it's 3 times, because 3 times 6 is 18. 2, add a 0, bring it down. Oh no. 3, 18, 2, add a 0, bring it down. 3, does anyone have an idea what's going to happen here? It's repeating. So this is going to be 0.83 repeating. So that's my decimal to take this thing and to put it as a percentage. If I want thing as a percentage, I move the decimal twice to the right. And this thing's going to become 83.3 repeating percent. That's what that's going to look like. If you have to long divide, that's the way you're going to do it. If I give you a nice fraction, like one of the ones I want you to know, it becomes a little bit easier. What's 2 over 4? Sorry, 2 over 5. Your fifths are ones that I recommended you know. 1/5 is 0.2, so 2/5 is 1 over 5 equals 0.2. So 2/5 is just 2 of these. So 2/5 is going to be 0.4. And now I want to turn this thing into a percentage. So I move the decimal twice to the right. Boom, boom. Any empty spaces get a 0. So 2/5, 0.4 is 40%. And I'm not going to do the last one. For the sake of time, I want you to play with some of this stuff. So today was just all about converting fractions and stuff. And tomorrow we'll look at some bed mass with decimals. It's going to be great. Flip the page. Here's your homework. I want you to do all of this page. It should be quick. You should be able to do this relatively quickly. Some of, like, the really ugly ones are only down there at the bottom, and even there, they're not that bad. Yep, do them now. I will tell you when to pack up. You've got time. On your market, set, go.